start it now. Okay, I'm just gonna skip Facebook for now because I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so I would love to hear about your work and how things are going and anything that you would, now Facebook is appearing. That was a very long time. Okay. Okay. I'm going to do this. It's like 10 slides. I'm going to do that. And then we can go on from there. Uh-oh. This is something I have to do first.
Miss Karen, I'm rejoining back from another device, okay?
Okay.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. I'm rejoining from another device, okay?
Okay, I'm going to do this slideshow, Batool.
Yeah. You start. I'm just rejoining.
Okay. Welcome to Karen Ryce's Raising Happy Kids Zoom show, episode 74. During this 1-hour Zoom show, I focus on sharing tips and lessons on the one rule to raising happy kids. Each episode has at least one example of the one rule in action, demonstrating how it helps you raise a happy child. Then, when we have guests, we have Q&A and discussion. When I talk about raising happy kids or creating harmony with kids, I bring up the one rule. The one rule equals agreement. Agreement equals harmony. Using the one rule means you find agreement. That's the rule. You find a solution that everyone likes. You've found agreement. You've found harmony. Knowing and following the one rule is all you really need to create harmony between you and your kids. In any situation where there are differences that might lead to conflict between you and your kids, use the one rule. Oh dear, it skipped a slide. I was trying to let Batool in. And so it doesn't go back easily. So I'm just going to go on from here. I explained that I learned this from 3-year-old children, working with them. They taught me this. So don't think you're in for a rough time. It's simple, it's easy, it's powerful and effective. It works if you use it. I'm glad you are here. Okay. Okay. Now she'll jump in. So, oh my goodness. So, I've been on your list for a very long time, Adam. I've always appreciated what you've shared and what the work you've been doing, and wanted to stay connected, and now even more so. So
thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
It's really
Thank
neat to be
you.
here with you. I appreciate what you've written and shared and just love the work. So any way that we can stay connected, I'm into it.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it. Sounds good. So you told me that you have like 5 programs that you're putting in a lot of schools.
Yeah, so I'm the executive director of an international nonprofit called Youth and Educators Succeeding. And for the last 25 years, this organization has been working around the world in a whole variety of ways, but mostly focused on what I call meaningful student involvement. It's this idea that students themselves can be equitable partners with adults throughout the educational system, from the very top levels all the way to classroom delivery every single day in every single way. So we have 5 programs that we do that through. Our flagship program is called Gen Yes. And in Gen Yes, it's a classroom curriculum. It's a classroom program where students learn how to teach teachers how to use technology in the classroom. So it's applied learning. They learn about the technology and then they get asked by teachers from around their school to come and provide technical assistance. So these students are part of changing education by reinforcing the power of technology, but also by shifting the dynamic between students and teachers, that instead of looking at students as the passive recipients of learning, students suddenly become active partners throughout the process. We have another program that's called Sound Out, and Sound Out works in schools to teach students about the school system and about school reform, and then how to change schools and improve them and make them better. This is a high school program that's worked in a couple dozen schools in the UK and Australia and across the US. And it's a very ambitious program that teaches students about government, about democracy, about actual, change, systems change, and what that looks like. We have another program called the Free Child Institute. And Free Child teaches young people about social change and about how the world is changing right now. It teaches the issues, it teaches actions that they can take, and then it engages students in classes to actually make that change. So high school leadership classes, social studies classes, middle school social studies classes, a variety of different organizations use this, as well as nonprofit organizations outside of the school. Whether it's for after school or for summer programs, it teaches the skills and knowledge that young people need to actually make a significant difference. And then our last 2 programs, one is called Yes Fam, and it's all about youth engagement in families and what it looks like when we purposefully teach families, parents, and young people themselves about engaging, about youth voice, about the power of young people, but then do that in the family context at home, so that young people learn that they can have a positive voice in the place where they live, and parents can learn that young people can contribute beyond, again, being passive kids and instead become active members of the family. And then our final program that we do is called Online Leadership for Youth. And it's a simple 5-part course where young people come and join a space like this, a Zoom space, and they learn about leadership skills and leadership issues. However, it's meant for non-traditional young people who have never had an opportunity to be leaders before. They might be outstanding at home, or they might be spectacular at school, or they might be neither, but they still know that they're leaders and they want to join in. And so we provide the classes that they need to learn those skills and issues to be able to lead not just their own lives, but also lead the lives of their families, their communities, their schools, and beyond. So those are our 5 programs that we have running at any given time. This last year, we had 150 schools participate in our programs. And over the course of our organization's existence, we've had just over 3,100 organizations participated. We've worked with over 10 million young people and adults all around the world, in Malaysia, in the Middle East, in Australia, up in Canada, and of course, across all the United States. 48 states have had us. So we're at work and doing the good things every single day.
Great. Wow.
Wow.
Sounds really good.
It's super fun, and it's big work, you know, but at the same time, it's all about the young people. And one of the great advantages that we have is that we are a tech-centered organization. We use technology not only to teach young people, but also to interact and to deliver our programs most effectively. So instead of depending on sitting in a class or being in an after-school space or doing a summer program where you have to be in person, all of our programs can be delivered online. So it's a very rich environment. But you know, it's also the reality of running a shoestring operation, Karen. We have a total of 12 staff right now that are serving all of these schools and doing all of this work. We have a proprietary website, we have our curriculums, we have all these different operations that always get handled. And we're always scarfing to find more support, more investors to help our organization be able to reach more young people more effectively. So it's that constant balance of, you know, do we focus on the programs and making those excellent? Do we focus on the funding and making sure that we can make the programs excellent, or do we do both all at the same time? So I'm constantly on the road. I'm trying to appeal to funders and donors and investors. I'm also working directly with young people and teachers and youth workers and parents, and just doing as much as I can. My staff does as much as they can, and we're really doing this thing.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So what's involved if a school wants to get involved with you and use your programs?
So basically what we do is provide the web tools, the curriculum, and the support that schools need to implement any of our programs at any given time. The first four programs that I mentioned, Gen Yes, Sound Out, Free Child, and Yes Fam, are all curriculum based, and they are given to teachers who in turn deliver them in classrooms, or given to youth workers who in turn deliver them in after school or summertime spaces. So they get registered with our nonprofit. They come to our website at yesk12.org. And they sign up for the program. All of our programs right now, we provide very few programs for free. However, Sound Out and Free Child don't have a cost associated with them right now to be able to access the websites and use all of our resources. The curriculum has cost to it, so a school might pay for that. With Gen Yes, we have a very rich and robust back-end website where students log the amount of work that they do and the kind of learning that they have while they do that work in schools, while they do that service for their schools. And we have access that's granted to that when schools pay our fee. And then once that they've paid in, they get an initial training on the curriculum, no matter which program that they're offered. Sometimes the training is a series of videos to watch. Sometimes it's a one-on-one with me or with one of my staff. And then they implement it. And throughout the school year, they can get as much support as they need, whether that's backup training or just one-on-one coaching time to make sure that the program is as effective as it can be. We communicate constantly with our teacher facilitators by sending them email newsletters and having special learning opportunities throughout the year. We host a network for different educators around the world to join in. This year, we have more than 150 facilitators, adult facilitators, who are working with children and youth in all these different settings. And we provide direct conversation. We facilitate that conversation, and they have that direct conversation with each other. So we get really exciting examples. One of my favorite ones just flourished over this last year. We have a school in Compton, California. It's a middle school where some really powerful work is being done, teaching young people to fulfill their dreams of going to other planets by developing 3D Mars landscapes. And they're 3D printing, they're using computer-aided design to really implement that. And then they're tracking all their learning. We connected them with a school in Preston in the United Kingdom. It's in Lincolnshire up north. And basically these two schools, completely different cultures, completely different racial backgrounds, completely different makeups. The school in Preston is doing youth-led social change work, and these young people are putting together projects. One of their projects is focused on it's called Stopping the Poverty Period. So young women's menstruation and access to the different supplies that they need in order to continue to attend school and continue to be engaged in their family and their community, those products cost money. I'm a dad. I have a teenage daughter, and I have a young child in my house, and so I'm constantly thinking about these things. But these young people took it to the nth degree because they recognize the cost of those things. That supplies can stop young women around the world from going to school, from helping around their family, from getting jobs, and it literally is a kind of period poverty. So they want to stop that, and they've created a social project to alleviate that. Well, the school in Preston connected with the school in Compton, and they've been having online conversations for the last several months about how they can work together, whether that is young people from severely economically depressed communities designing things online, or young people in middle class suburban communities with access to resources, trying to do something for other people around the world. How can they collaborate and really come up with new projects that fulfill their dreams? So that's one of the exciting things that we're doing, but it's an example of really the power and impact of young people. And what we do at Youth and Educators Succeeding is facilitate those connections. And it's awesome work, Karen. But that's how schools really get started with us. They started the website and we go from there, yesk12.org.
Wow, nice. Wow, interesting. So from what you're saying, it sounds like your focus is with like middle school and older students or kids.
It's really interesting, actually. Our youngest program participants are in 3rd grade.
Okay.
We have programming that starts in 3rd grade, goes through 12th grade, where our program is generally split 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. 1/3 in elementary schools for the youngest grades, 3 through 6. 1/3 in middle school for grades 6 through 9, and then 1/3 in high school for grades 9 through 12. So, and it depends on the country, it depends on the state, it depends on the city and the individual district, or even the building level. But in some places we cover all of those grades. So it really depends on what the school's interest is or the nonprofit organization's interest is.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, because well, my focus, of course, started with the youngest that are, well, actually, we didn't have babies or anything like that. Our children started at 2.5. And it's pretty amazing what I learned, as I said, from the 3-year-olds. It took me a lot of years to figure out what they had taught me. I implemented it as I looked back recently over my my first book. I realized, well, that's how I did it. I didn't have a name for it or a title. Actually, I did, but it wasn't as simple as what it is now. So there's a few things here. One, I mentioned to you that I'm connected with a couple of international organizations. Both are peace-oriented. One is the Women's Federation for World Peace. That was the first one. And I did some workshops with them, for them. And the other one, I got connected with them during the same time period, and that is the Universal Peace Federation. And I'm an ambassador for peace with them. On the community level, they also have ambassadors for peace, a lot of them in the world. The number 5,000 comes to mind, who are heads of government or in higher levels of government. But recently they have said that they want to, well, that we are partnered. And I know there's like two kinds of partner, and I'm sure ours is like a casual type partnership, but we haven't figured out yet what form this is going to take. Batool has agreed to be a representative of my work in Asia. She lives in Pakistan and is an educator there, connected with a private school. And one thing that she suggested was she would like to see the book translated. So I had thought of someone to connect with that, but then I was thinking maybe the Universal Peace Federation or the Women's Federation, since they are such a strong force, especially the Universal Peace in the world, that and they're well established, there might be people there that would like to do that kind of work. Anyway, so I've been thinking in terms of you and I connecting, because okay, I'm having a dialogue right now with the school that I was part of founding. We started the Montessori preschool, and then an elementary school developed out of that. And I may be teaching the elementary class how to use the one rule. Anyway, so I haven't taught a lot of this out there. I've given a lot of thought to it. Anyway, so that's kind of been my thinking with you, is that there are a lot of people that could get a lot of benefit from knowing this. It's very simple.
So Karen, can I ask you a question?
Please.
Tell me about one of the dilemmas of working with very young people. One of the challenges of it is that whole notion of voice is so different when kids are young, in the sense that it's not just their words and their verbal affect, but it's also their behavior that communicates. Can you tell me about the idea of how behavior as communication fits into saying yes, and your role in the way that works? Behavior is communication. What do you think about that?
Well, I've been very aware with small children in terms of relating with their behavior. Like there'll be times when there's maybe a couple of families together and the adults are talking back and forth and the older children are talking back and forth, and the younger children will do things and to me, it's always been that they are sharing in a way that they can share who they are and what's important to them. That's how I've thought of it.
It's interesting because part of the challenge seems to be it doesn't seem like it's innate to adults to trust a young person's nonverbal communication, let alone to trust their verbal communication. We often don't trust young people to be able to
I know.
represent themselves successfully. We think we know better as adults, whether we're parents or teachers or in any role as an adult. And the challenge to me seems to be teaching adults to learn to listen without judgment, without expectation, without any specific thing. Instead, just hear what young people are saying, especially when they're young. In my house right now, there's a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. I raised my daughter from the time that she was born to the time, I mean, she's 18 today, virtually 35, let me tell you. But that real everyday existence of having a young person communicating with more than just words, and then believing and trusting that they know what's right for them.
Right.
That's super challenging to me as an adult who thinks he knows a lot of things. I don't actually know a lot of things. I think I know very little, but every now and then that my self-judgment gets a little bit too egotistical, too adult-centric. And I think I know things. I know what's best for those children. But in reality, I get to learn what's best for those children from them all of the time.
Yeah.
But how do we learn that? How do we teach that on purpose instead of just bumping around in the dark and hoping for the best?
That's what I feel I can share, actually, now that you've touched one of my strong points. Okay, one thing, and when I was in college, my focus was anthropology. So I have a little background in that. And one thing, it seems that the way we live, which was called our culture, is passed on from the older people to the younger people, because even when we're born, we are not born speaking a language, able to get up and run around and do this and that. We have to be pretty still and develop things and absorb from our environment. So that, I think, so one of the things that adults don't seem to translate, it somehow it didn't get continued. There's a couple of cultures that I know of where it has been continued, but in general, from what I've studied and observed, because I've traveled in the world, it hasn't been. It's like you're saying, like adults think they need to be in charge and they know best. Okay, so let's say if adults know best, and if children learn from adults, then adults need to model the kind of behavior they would like. So if they want their children to be respectful to them, that used to be my big theme, was the power of respect. So if they want their children to be respectful to them, they need to demonstrate that respect to the child. They need to show how it's done, up close, personal. When you are being that way with children, they see, they feel, they know. It's like, that's how I do it. This is how it makes somebody feel. And it just happens, just like they learn to speak the language that's in their environment, or the languages, especially, anyway. And for me, I guess, what I did with my children was, one day I caught myself yelling at them about something, and they were all small. And it just was like, this is not how I wanted to be, not how I want to be. This is it, done, finished. And I apologized to them and promised never to try to force them to do what they didn't want to do. And it just went from there. And I didn't ever do that again. It never felt good to me. I don't think that kind of thing feels good to people that are doing it. But
so, but
yes.
how did you come to that point though, Karen? It sounds like you were, how did you come to the point where you resigned to never do that again? Was it because of your children's emotional response? Was it because of something that you read or learned? I mean, what was it that stopped you, that intervened?
Right. I think it was my Montessori training. I think that had been, because when I just had my first daughter, until my son was born, I was able to be what I would think would be ideal in terms of what I'd learned from Montessori, in terms of respecting her and all of that she got a good dose of.
Right.
When my son came, I didn't know how to give so entirely to two children. It was very difficult. But once I made this commitment, it wasn't difficult to keep. And I guess that my Montessori training, which believes, I mean, think of like a child, right? Think of a baby to a 3-year-old and all that they learn. I mean, a whole language out of no language, and how to move their body in all kinds of intricate ways, let alone basically getting up and walking. There's so much that they are capable and do. I mean, it's just built into them to do, and they do. I've come to call that they're following their developmental blueprint, because that's one of my, I guess, specialties, is knowing about what happens during the 2-year-old period, which seems to be really difficult for adults and therefore difficult for the children. Whereas it could be really simple and easy. It might be one of the more difficult times, but with the understanding of what they're doing and what they're putting together, that can help smooth that time. And if that time gets smooth, then lots of future times, including the transition to adulthood from childhood, can smooth too.
So what you're talking about sounds to me a little bit like, more than, it was like 10, 12 years ago, I sat down, I had a chance to go up to Vancouver Island in British Columbia and sit down with Raffi, the children's singer.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him.
He brought a group of us together to talk to him about youth empowerment and child belonging and different things that were important. And he ended up developing a book out of it. And he thought that his book was a very unique philosophy, and he wrote eloquently and did all the right things in it. But the book's called Child Honoring. And it's this whole notion that we can learn to see young people in these very authentic, honest, real ways that are about them, you know, that honestly reflect the human being that they are. I didn't really walk away with a lot out of that conversation. But one of the things that I ended up devising was this notion of children as whole human beings, Karen. And I think that's the piece that's missing from all of this. We as parents, we see children as being dependent on us. As teachers, we see students as being dependent on us. As youth workers, we see young people being dependent on us. As healthcare providers, as politicians, anybody who interacts with children or works on their behalf sees that dependency. And in that dependency, we see young people as less than fully human. And this is my biggest concern, is this notion that we have disabled young people from being 100% human beings from the moment that they're born. And instead we view them as something less than fully human. And that to me seems the real challenge. That's one of the things I love about Maria Montessori's work, is that she stepped it up so much to bring out the humanity of children and to really work with who they were as themselves, as individuals, rather than, you know, here's the one blue plate, the one boilerplate, the one blueprint, the one template that everybody follows every time, all the way, no matter what. She talked about them as whole people, and she saw the multi-sensory, multifaceted, multidimensional beings of children, of young children, 3-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 9-year-olds. I love that. And then the other big piece that comes to my mind, Karen, is this whole idea that as whole people, young people need to be more than just passive recipients of what adults are dishing to them, no matter where the space is. As a whole human being, I have a critical consciousness. I have a creative heart. I have a deep empathy. I have all of these tools within me, but so does the 3-year-old. So does the 6-year-old. So does the 9-year-old. And we get to embrace all of those instead of just being selective that the day you turn 19 or 21 or 25 or 32, you're suddenly endowed with full humanity. We are fully people from the moment that we come out of the womb, and even before then. And the question is, how do we bring that into the presence? And it sounds like you're grappling with a similar question. How do we acknowledge all kids are full human beings right now? How do we do it, Karen?
That's where this concept of the one rule comes in. And the thing is that until that came to me, I was not into the rules. I like the concept of guidelines, but I realized when this whole thing started with these 2 little girls who both wanted the same swing, and I had been telling the children that we were going to find solutions that whoever was involved, they liked it. That was the foundation. And so the rule in this case, I held on to that, to the chain, to the swing. So that turned it into a rule, because that was not my habit to do that sort of thing. But in this case, I did. And that's where the one rule comes in, that the rule is we're going to find what works for us, whoever us is. In this case, it was the 2 little girls. And it kind of was me, because I was saying they were going to find a way to do this. And I pointed out, and this is what I have on my new website. I pointed out, because you are important, and you are important, and you both deserve to have things good for you. And one of the little girls I know, I for a long time, I thought that her eyes lit up because she got the idea that they were both important. Well, maybe that's true, but she's the one that came up with the idea of how they could do this, which was to both swing, one sit and the other face, and both swing at the same time. And the other little girl liked that idea, and I stayed to help make sure they were safe. But And I think I told you that there were a few of these demonstrations that I gave. And then it's like everybody got it, whether they had been part of it or not. And the only time that something had to be demonstrated again or spoken about again was, I think of one particular, well, actually, there were a couple of students that came from homes that were not harmonious. And when they joined, they needed help to get into this kind of mindset. But the other ones, they got it, and they didn't get into conflicts. They figured things out right away. So.
Well, isn't that the big challenge, is to bring young people to that place of self-efficacy, no matter what their age, so that they can get there on their own.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
Right, and they can do it too. I mean, yeah, just one thought I had right now is of remembering a 2-year-old, and there was an adult who was upset about something sad, or maybe something had happened in her life. And the 2-year-old came up and just hugged her, not talking about anything, just hugged her and gave her good, loving energy. And I think that's who we are. I think that's in us, to do that sort of thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it's become, see, when I started all of this in my life myself, I'd been invited, and I guess it's, the last I heard, it's an open invitation, but that's been a lot of years now, so I'm not sure. But I was invited to India by a community service organization to start educational centers, and they had about 100 different places, and that I was going to do that, and I really wanted to do that. And then I realized that I felt I'd learned something which I didn't see practiced around me, that I needed to share in terms of relating with children, that I needed to share with people before I went to do this. And so I started writing down the points and it turned into my first book. And then it turned into this whole mission to have things be wholesome and good and loving and compassionate and fun and just all kinds of goodness for the kids. That's what I want. So, and this particular thing, the one rule, came about because I had figured out that I had either learned or somehow used, maybe developed 108 different tools, skills, and strategies for doing the power of respect work that I was doing. And one evening I asked myself, like, do people really need to learn all this to be able to do this? Because I didn't think they were going to want to do all that. I mean, it took me a long time to have all those things flow into my life. And the thing is, a lot of people have a lot of it anyway. But so what came to me is what has become the one rule, which is to find agreement, You just, if you do that, if you make that, okay, I used to have, before the one rule evolved, there was a concept of making respect your bottom line so that you never are less than respectful. But respect, even though people have a pretty common concept of respect, and in terms of the work I was doing, it was just they didn't apply it to children, even though they expected it from children, which is to me backwards. Anyway, so the one rule worked as this bottom line thing, because it does, it works as, I felt that was what I really had to offer, was there were a lot of good things, a lot of good thinking out there in the world, but they were missing this. They were missing that here's the you don't go below this. And in those days it was, if it's not respectful. Here it's agreement is the bottom line. You don't do it if you can't find agreement. And one thing that I've seen is that it causes you to kind of pull back and get a bigger picture. Sometimes when you're totally engrossed in wanting things the way you want them, you have to expand yourself to realize that there are other people and they have what they want, and that somehow, somewhere, there is a point of harmony there. And all you have to do, and the thing is that once you start this thinking, it becomes so easy and it feels so good that people keep doing it. I mean, my own children, when they were teenagers, there was no fighting, there was no it's just, if things got solved so fast that there was never even conflict. And that's what kind of happens, is that you don't need conflict resolution, because you dissolve the conflict part before it even comes about.
Right. You don't need conflict resolution when you don't have conflict.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
Even the one rule, you don't need to use the one rule unless there's some area that could develop into conflict.
I think the challenge becomes, though, Karen,
Yeah.
you're fighting against a society, and you already know this. I'm just saying this for my own edification as much as anything. But it's as if you're fighting against a society that appears to be premised and prefaced on that violent interaction of conflict, of anger, of all of the feelings that go with that preface the one rule, you know, and it really gets to that place. How do you fight against how do you challenge, how do you work against the predominant social norms, whether that's in the United States or beyond? The norms against violence, the norms against cooperation, the norms against peace.
I don't focus on that. I don't give any energy at all to that. I totally focus on, well, what can we come to? You know, like, you're important and I'm important and Batool's important. We're, you know, like, we're the ones here right now. So we're each important and we each deserve to have good things happen, things we feel good about. Let's figure out, how can we do this? And so there's no building up of energy to any of those things that are not wanted. We just focus on the solution. What is our solution? What can we find? There's got to be something. There's got to be some way we can do this, you know? we're smart, we can figure this out, building on that. And I don't know if you got a chance, I think I sent you about the Guardians, the story about the Guardians.
I didn't get a chance to look at that yet.
Okay,
No.
well, what happens in the story of the Guardians is there's a little boy, and I've actually had a boy who was that age. I didn't even know this, but I was reading this story, and he really liked it. I got approval from someone who might have been in that kind of situation. There's a little boy, and he was taking the long way around to school because there was a bully that would bother him, and he was new in school. And anyway, this whole story develops of these girls, he meets up with them, and they come up with the concept of the Guardians who help the other kids. Well, for him, it's walking him to and from school to protect him because they're older, and he was in the second grade, and in this, his mom is learning about the one rule, and she teaches them, and what they do is they choose a situation, and then they act out what might be a solution for that, and then they act it out. And there's something in me that keeps going back to that, even though I'm working on some other things. It keeps going back to there's power in this, there's change in this, there's harmony in this. And so I've thought in terms of you and your work too, that if, okay, I thought it, and I put it in one of the stories, because I think I have like 5 different Guardian stories. And I've had this idea of it could be set up like a fundraiser for the PTA. It used to be PTA, but now it's PTSA. That it could be a fundraiser for them, and sharing it. I'm into 50-50 splits, so that okay, so it originally, when I had this idea, it was because of seeing my grandson in a play, the Missoula Children's Theater. They're all over the world now too, and they go for 1 week to a school or a community center, and they do this play, and the kids learn the parts, and they have music and costumes. And he was in this play, and I was thinking, wow, I wonder if my work, if I could do something like that. Well, I think with the one rule, it could be done in a day, where kids or even adults too, learn the one rule, because it's really simple. Practice it a little, go over problems. I mean, they don't have to be problems they have. They could be problems they see in a TV show or a movie or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But and then they practice a solution. And I've thought, well, maybe some kids wouldn't want to do this kind of thing. Maybe they'd like to write a story about it or paint a picture or something like that. But
Mhm.
anyway, the idea, the basic idea was that they break into, those that are participating break into groups. They choose a problem, they find a harmonious solution, something they all agree to. And that's one of my favorite things about the one rule, is that it just depends on who's involved, what solutions will be.
Mhm.
And then they demonstrated. Now the fundraiser comes in because they put on, like in the evening or the afternoon or whenever it is, they put on for all their parents and neighbors and everybody, and they buy tickets to come and watch them do little plays on these things. And in that, they're demonstrating the one rule, how to find harmony.
Mhm.
And this keeps coming back, no matter what else I'm thinking of and working on. This keeps coming back. There's something really important there, in terms of, I mean, I've even thought like reality TV, or, anyway.
Mhm. Well, it's a neat idea. I'd love to talk about it more, Karen. Sounds
Yeah.
fun.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad you made it, and you too, Batool.
Thank you. I just typed a text message, whatever I was thinking about the conversation, because I wanted to hear you what you're speaking. So you can read that later on. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you
Definitely.
are here.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Adam.
Thank you, Batool.
Thank you.
Okay. I wish you
right,
all
Karen.
well.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.